Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back into another edition of Keytime Sports. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to Keytime Sports right here on YouTube, Key City Sports on Instagram, and the Key on Millions.co. Here is my media feed. Here is my merchandise. We are rolling out new merchandise within the next few days. Here is our logo, part of our rebrand. And here is my profile so that you will know it is me. Here's my profile. So now, the NBA playoffs started on Saturday, and the very first game of the playoffs was the Toronto Raptors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, one thing that I did notice about this game starting off was the Cavaliers, they had the lead for most of the game. And as you all can see, when it comes to the scores for the Raptors and the Cavaliers, you see Brandon Ingram, he had 17 points, RJ Barrett 24 points, Scotty Barnes 21 points, Jacob Pelosi 4 points, Jamal Sheed 17 points, bench production for the Raptors, Sandro Mashilevi 3 points, Trace Jackson Davis 2 points, Jamison Battle 0 points, Colin Murray Boyles 14 points, Jonathan Mogbo 2 points, AJ Lawson 2 points, Jacoby Walters 17 points, and Grady Dick 0 points. So one thing that I did notice about the Cavaliers is they were very efficient. We see that Donovan Mitchell, he had a good game. He had 32. James Harden also had 22 points. But the one thing about James Harden is what can he do in elimination games? We already know that James Harden can play out of his mind the first 2 or 3 games of a playoff series. But when it gets down to those last 2 or 3 games of a playoff series or elimination games, he is nowhere to be found. And as you all can see, Cavaliers had contributions when it came to bench production. Matt Strus, he had a wonderful game. He was 8 of 10 from the floor. He scored a point every minute that he was on the floor. 24 points in 24 minutes. And the Cleveland Cavaliers are 1-up, 1-0. Game 2 will be tonight, if I'm not mistaken. Game 2 is tonight. So we are going to see if the Toronto Raptors can make a response or a statement. As I said, largest lead was 24 points in this game. And for the Raptors, it was 5 points. But the Cavaliers, they have the better roster, the better scores, and when it comes to bench production, they have the better bench production. But one thing the Cavaliers cannot do, they cannot mess around and lose the momentum in this series. Now, see, one thing I always say about game ones is that it's a fill-out game, whether it's baseball or basketball. Game ones are always a fill-out game. By the time game 2 and game 3 gets here in a playoff series, you pretty much know where your team is at and what you can do. And when a series gets to a game 7, it's pretty much you already know what the strengths and weaknesses are of your opponent. It's just a matter of, can you stop it consistently and can you be efficient on the floor, or playing baseball, can you be efficient? So for the Cavaliers, one thing I can say is Cavaliers, they did what they were supposed to do. Let's see what they can do tonight. And here is a couple of highlights. We get to the third quarter, and basically the Cavaliers, they had a pretty much firm hold on this game. They went up by 14 at the start of the fourth quarter, And that was pretty much it because they were up by 17 at this point, up by 20, 21, excuse me. And then all of a sudden, basically, Toronto, they tried to play, hero ball, but too much of Donovan Mitchell, too much of James Harden, and plus Matt Strus. He had a great game, and the Toronto Raptors are left searching for what they can do in game two, which is tonight. Let's see what the Raptors, how can they respond, because the Raptors are the fourth youngest team in the NBA. They haven't had much of adversity throughout the regular season, so this is their first test of adversity in the playoffs with this group of guys. So let's see what the Raptors can do. The next game I am going to cover is the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, Denver Nuggets, I could see the Denver Nuggets winning this series no more than 6 games because I'm going to say something about the Toronto, not Toronto, but the Timberwolves bench production without Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Their bench production has really took a hit this season. As you all can see, Kyle Anderson, he had 0 points in 7 minutes. Naz Reid, 5 points. Mike Conley, 3 points. Ayo Dosunmu, 14 points. And you had Bones Highland with 0 points. Now with the Denver Nuggets, relatively to me, I believe that Jamal Murray, he did have 30 points, but he wasn't as efficient as he usually is, because I always have this when he doesn't make any threes, and he didn't make any threes, he was 0 for 8, but he still managed to get 30 points. Timberwolves are in trouble because the games where Jamal Murray doesn't make any 3-point shots, the next game he always comes back and makes 3 to 4 3-pointers in a playoff series or a regular season game. So this is one of those games where the Timberwolves, they needed Anthony Edwards to score, I would say, 40 points. And basically, when it comes to the Timberwolves, I hate to say it, but it seems like the Timberwolves are a one-man show with Anthony Edwards, because you have Julius Randle, but Julius Randle sometimes he sputters. His scoring is up and down and it sputters. Now, we already know that Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, they are both, they're supposed to be the 1-2 punch for the Minnesota Timberwolves. But Saturday night, it did not look like that. It seems like that both of these guys, they were inefficient. You had Anthony Edwards, he was 7 of 19. You had Julius Randle, 7 of 16. Anthony Edwards, he made 2 3-pointers, and Julius Randle didn't make any 3-pointers. But when it comes to bench production, that's where all of this boils down to, and this is why the Timberwolves lost. And as far as defensively, defending without fouling, it's not really, I'm going to say that the Timberwolves are going to have a tough time defending without fouling, because we all know, and I didn't even get to Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic, he had a quiet game too. As you all can see, Nikola Jokic, he only had 25 points. 25 points, 11 of 19 in 40 minutes. He had a quiet game. So he didn't need to score. Nikola Jokic, he didn't need to score as much as he needed to, because you had contributions from Aaron Gordon, you had contributions from Chris Braun. Now, one thing I can say is, if the Denver Nuggets somehow win game 2, and tonight they play game 2, and if the Denver Nuggets can win game 2 and can somehow get one of the 2 games in Minnesota, the Timberwolves are in trouble. But I believe if the Timberwolves do not win tonight's game, I believe this series is over in 5. Because I don't think it's going to go to a game 6 or a game 7 if the Denver Nuggets win tonight. And as you all can see, when it comes to these highlights, for the second quarter, Minnesota, they had the lead for most of it. But by the time we get to the third quarter, midway point of the third quarter and into the late part of the third quarter, the Denver Nuggets, they went up by 15, and that was 2 of Jamal Murray's 30 points. And it just seems like with the Minnesota Timberwolves, once they get down, they just go uphill. That's all that they were doing, is going uphill. The majority of the third and fourth quarter in the second half, the Timberwolves, the average deficit was 13 points. 13 points. So with that, meaning that when it comes to the Timberwolves, they can't defend well. They can't defend well. And when it comes to Rudy Gobert, see, Rudy Gobert, he's just a defensive liability. He doesn't create any matchup problems at all. He just creates mismatches. And that was pretty much the game right there. When they went up by 7 with under 3 minutes left, and the Timberwolves basically didn't score much down the stretch in the last 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. So Timberwolves are stuck between a rock and a hard place. Let's see what the Timberwolves can do tonight. Do I think that the Timberwolves are going to win this series? No, but at least try and make it competitive. And that's what leads to my next. That's what leads to one of the 2 of the series that we saw yesterday, because they were non-competitive. But Atlanta and New York, I believe that this is going to be one, if not the best series out there. Now, we did see Orlando and we did see Detroit last night, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later on. But right now, let's talk about the Hawks and the Knicks, game 1. Now, the Hawks, they were pretty much fighting through deficits throughout this game. And I'm going to say something. When it comes to Gabe Vincent, he is just a body out there. And as you all can see, he only had 2 points in 15 minutes. When it comes to Okongwu, 19 points. Jalen Johnson, 23 points. CJ McCollum, 26 points. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 17 points. Dyson Daniels, 4 points. And then once we get to the New York Knicks starting 5 all throughout the regular season averaged 33 minutes. And for the playoffs, it seemed like it's going to be like that too. You have OG Anunoby, who is pretty much playing the entire game, because OG Anunoby had 18 points. Karl Anthony Towns had 25 points. Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges had 11 points each, and Jalen Brunson had 28 points. Knicks, they didn't get much contribution from their bench production, but they never do. Now, one thing about the Knicks, I predicted that this series would be over in 5 games with the Knicks, because we all know that the Knicks, they are going to have 1 or possibly 2 games where they are going to slip up. But since the Hawks are a young team, the New York Knicks, you gotta put them to bed because the last 2 years you've been to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now this year you should make it to the NBA Finals, but we all know that Boston has something to say about that. Possibly Detroit, even though Detroit, they had a little bit of a slip up last night when it comes to the Orlando Magic. I will get into that a little bit later, but the New York Knicks, they have everything in front of them, and they need to keep this momentum because as long as you keep winning in the playoffs, you are going to put pressure no matter what on your opponent. Now, the Hawks, they have nothing to lose. The Knicks, they have everything to lose because we are expecting the Knicks to be in the second round and make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. But the Hawks, it seemed like to me, the Hawks, they can just play freely because we didn't expect the Hawks to be in this situation. We expected for somebody else to be playing the New York Knicks. So, Hawks, hey, valiant effort. Let's see what the Hawks can do when it comes to game 2 as far as tonight. When it comes to game 2 as far as tonight. But when it comes to the Knicks, hey, they can't have any slip-ups or defensive lapses where the Hawks go on significant runs. Now, there was a point in this game where it was close, but we all know that the New York Knicks, they pretty much had this game on lock. They had the momentum when it comes to defense and when it comes to efficient scoring. Now here, this was the first quarter, but let's get to the midway point of the second quarter. Here is the Atlanta Hawks. They got it down to 3. They got that deficit down to 3, but the New York Knicks, basically, it just didn't matter because most of the time they went to the basket and they were scoring efficiently. The Hawks were too, but as you all can see, it was pretty much back and forth the last few minutes of the second quarter. But in the third quarter, pretty much the Knicks, they pretty much put the clamps down, had a 9-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and the Knicks, they did not let up. They didn't let up because we get to the last couple of minutes of the fourth quarter. As you all can see, the New York Knicks, they built a 11-point lead. The Hawks got that down to 8, but it was too little, too late for the Atlanta Hawks, and the New York Knicks did what they were supposed to do. First game, you had home court advantage. Go ahead and win game 1, and let's see what the Atlanta Hawks can do in game 2. So now, the next game I am going to cover is the Houston Rockets and the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, Kevin Durant didn't play this game. Kevin Durant didn't play, and the Los Angeles Lakers still have the same problems, but they were fortunate. They were fortunate enough to get this win because they had twice as many turnovers as the Houston Rockets. But when it comes to the Houston Rockets, I've been saying this I said this throughout the regular season. Where is the scoring going to come from consistently outside of Kevin Durant? Now, as you all can see, Jabari Smith, 16 points. Alfred Sengun, 19 points. Josh Okogie, 7 points. And then you had Amen Thompson and Reed Shepherd each score 17 points. But the Rockets, they need more. They need more contributions from their bench production. And when it comes to the Lakers, Everybody for the Lakers, they were in double figures. You had LeBron James and DeAndre Ayton each have 19 points. You had Rui Hachimura with 14, Marcus Smart with 15. Luke Kennard, he had one of the best games of his career. He was 9 of 13 from the floor. He was 5 for 5 from the three-point line. And also, the Lakers, they really didn't have much from their bench, but they really didn't need much from their bench production. And as you all can see, when it comes to these statistics, and we look at turnovers, the Lakers had 20 turnovers. Now, as the Lakers, they go on, they cannot have 20 turnovers each game, because that is going to put them behind the 8 ball. And the Rockets, what can they do without Kevin Durant? Now, game 2 is not going to happen until tomorrow night. But the Rockets, outside of Kevin Durant, it's not looking good. I believe the playoff experience showed on Saturday night, because outside of last year, the group of guys outside of Kevin Durant, those group of guys, they only have one form of playoff experience, and that was against Golden State last season. But for the Rockets, let's see what the Rockets can do in game 2. Can the Lakers serve at home and win game 2 and try and win one of the 2 games in Houston to come back in game 5 and try and finish out this series? Who knows? But that's all, well, as of right now, that is all hypothetical. We got to see if Kevin Durant is going to come back for game 2. We got to, because if Kevin Durant doesn't come back for game 2 and the Lakers go up 2 games, game 3, the Rockets will have to win. If the Rockets don't win game 3, that's if Kevin Durant doesn't play for game 2. If the Rockets don't win game 3, then basically the series is over with. The series is over with. But as of right now, when it comes to the Houston Rockets and the Los Angeles Lakers, we know that they had like a collective team. It was a collective team win for the Lakers, and let's see if the Lakers can do that on a game in, game out basis when it comes to the playoffs. DeAndre Ayton had a double-double last night, and I'm really happy about that, because throughout the regular season, it seemed like he wasn't able to take over the game, but he did. He had a couple of blocks along with LeBron, and that's basically how you want to start off the playoffs. See, this is the midway point of the second quarter. Going into halftime, the Lakers, they had the momentum. They had the lead for the majority of this game, and for a couple minutes there, they didn't have the lead, but that's why I say turnovers. Now, there's a point in the fourth quarter. This is the early part of the fourth quarter. There's a point in the fourth quarter where we get to the last 6 minutes. Of this game, where the Lakers were up by 16 with under 3 minutes left. Make that 14, and see, the Lakers, they were supposed to close. There wasn't even, you are not supposed to give your opponent a chance to even have a thought that they can come back. And as you can see, Lakers down the stretch, they started to go on this run, and they pretty much ended the game on a 12-2 run. And one thing about it is, it almost looked like the Lakers were going to lose this game, but even though they won by 9, there's still a lot of things that the Lakers can improve upon. But like I always say, game ones are just fill out games to see what this team is going to do, because even though the Lakers played the Rockets in the regular season, you didn't really see their playbook. And when it comes to the playoffs, every team, they always have a different kind of playbook when it comes to the playoffs. No matter what sport you are in, you will always see a different kind of playbook in the playoffs. So the next game I'm going to cover, this was pretty much a blowout, so I'm not going to show any highlights of this game because the majority of the highlights are going to be Celtic highlights. So when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers without Joel Embiid, Paul George, 17 points. Adem Bona, 3 points. Kelly Oubre Jr., 10 points. Tyrese Maxey, 21 points. VJ Edgecombe, 13 points. And bench production, they did not have any significant contributions from their bench production. Now, as far as the Boston Celtics, this game ended up being this game was a blowout, actually. There's no way to sugarcoat it. This was pretty much a beatdown, and I said this in my reaction video immediately after yesterday's game, because they had a 30-point win, and the last time the Celtics had a 30-point win was in 1976 versus the New York Knicks, but they did not go on to win the finals that year. The Philadelphia 76ers won the NBA championship in 1976. So that actually correlates to what happened yesterday. But as far as the Celtics, you had Jason Tatum, 25 points. Sam Hauser, 12 points. Namas Quetta, 13 points. Derek White, 10 points. Jaylen Brown, 26 points. Not much bench production for the Celtics, but when you have a blowout, you don't need many contributions from the last guy on the bench. You really don't. When it comes to the Celtics, let's see what they can do. Let's see what they can do tomorrow, and let's see if the 76ers can somehow make this a series, because I think that this is a foregone conclusion already, and I believe that this is a sweep no matter what. The next game I am going to cover, another blowout. The Phoenix Suns and the Oklahoma City Thunder. There is nothing that is going to go well for the Suns when you have Dillon Brooks as one of your leading scorers. You had Devin Booker, 23 points, Dillon Brooks, 18 points, Jalen Green, 17 points, and then you had Ozo Agudaro, 0 points, and Jordan Goodwin, 2 points. Royce O'Neal and everybody else on the Phoenix Suns bench, this wasn't even a contest. Wasn't even a contest, because largest lead of this game was 26 at one point. And it started to make me think about a few things, because I remember 15, 20 years ago, no matter what 1-8 seed you had in the Eastern Conference or the Western Conference, every game would be close. But now it's like with the Thunder, if they go on a 12-0 run, that could pretty much basically be the game, because they didn't relinquish the lead at all. They didn't, because, like I said, largest lead of this game was 20. Largest lead of this game was 39. After the start of the fourth quarter, I basically started writing my storyline for game 2 and pretty much chopping this loss up as as basically you basically had a play-in team if you're the Phoenix Suns, pretty much get into the playoffs just 48 hours earlier, and pretty much we already know that this is a foregone conclusion, but we're just trying to see if this is going to be a series. Now, game 2 is Wednesday, but I don't see no improvement coming for the Phoenix Suns. And the Phoenix Suns, they have a lot of stuff to work on, but it's gonna take more than just a couple of improvements to the game plan. The Phoenix Suns, we all know going into this year, the Phoenix Suns, they had a rebuilding year. This was a rebuilding year for the Phoenix Suns. And for the Oklahoma City Thunder, all depends on if they can keep this up and see if we can have our first repeat champion since the Warriors did it in 17 and 18. Wow. Almost 10 years since we've had a repeat champion. But there's no reason for me to show any highlights of this game because this game was already one-sided before. It was one-sided on paper and it was one-sided on the floor. The next game I'm going to cover is not too surprising when it comes to the Detroit Pistons, because Detroit Pistons, they haven't won a home playoff game since 2008. They haven't. And as you can see, the Magic, I believe that the Magic, this was a momentum win. They're riding off of the momentum from Friday night. And one thing about it is their starting five, everybody was efficient. You had Pablo Banchero, 23 points. Franz Wagner, 19 points. Wendell Carter Jr. and Desmond Bain each had 17 points. Jalen Suggs had 16 points. Bench production, Jamal Cain, 2 points. Tristan da Silva and Anthony Black each had 7 points. Golga Batiste had 4 points. You get to the Detroit Pistons, it was basically Cade Cunningham and nobody else. Tobias Harris, he was the second leading scorer with 17 points. Duncan Robinson, 9. Jalen Duren, 8. And Azur Thompson, 8. Bench production, you didn't get much from your bench production. Now for the Detroit Pistons, I believe that if the Detroit Pistons, if they lose game 2, then the series, I'm not going to say it's over, but the Pistons, they will be in a hard place. This is why I said throughout the season that the Boston Celtics were the best team in the East, because we didn't necessarily see the Pistons under much adversity during the regular season. And even last season, they weren't under much adversity because we didn't expect nothing from the Pistons. But now, let's see how the Pistons are going to respond in Game 2. Game 2 is Wednesday. So, but basically, they're giving this series for all of the players. They're giving them an extra day of rest. And really, let's see what the Magic can do, because the Magic, when it comes to bench production, they were plus 20. The Magic were plus 20, and it just seems like that the Detroit Pistons could never get the lead. As you can see throughout this highlight, Orlando had the lead in every highlight. 42-34, we get to the third quarter. Look at this. Orlando had the lead. Even though that the Detroit Pistons made little mini runs to get back within 3 and 4, it was always one of those shots like that to calm everything down and to keep the momentum on the Magic side. See, here's another one. Detroit got it back down to 5. We all thinking that, okay, Detroit is going to go on a run. But here's another shot, another timely basket, and another momentum shifting basket when it comes to the Orlando Magic. Now, even though Cade Cunningham made that three, I was saying, I'm like, okay, is Detroit going to get the lead when we get down to the final 4 minutes of the game? We all see where pretty much the Orlando Magic separated themselves from the Detroit Pistons. Now, 7-point lead became a 9-point lead, and that was pretty much it. Pretty much it. So what can the Detroit Pistons do in game two? Because in order to advance to the next round, you got to win at home if you are the Detroit Pistons. Because you can get I don't think you can get 2 or 3 games in Orlando with the way that the Orlando Magic is playing right now. They have all the momentum coming off of their game versus Charlotte, then coming off of this game last night. They have so much momentum. Let's see what the Pistons are made of for game two. The last game I'm going to cover was a very, very entertaining game. The only game, I'm going to say that outside of the Orlando Magic and Detroit Pistons, Trailblazers and Spurs was very competitive. It was very competitive, and as you all can see, Victor Wembanyama, he had 35 points in his first playoff game, and with the Spurs, we didn't see much jitters, even though that this group of guys, this is their very first playoff outing. As you all can see, when it comes to the Portland Trailblazers, outside of Denny Avdija, nobody, and I do mean nobody, had consistent scoring. Even when it comes to the Trailblazers, they emptied out their entire bench production, and you really couldn't get significant minutes from their bench. But when it comes to the San Antonio Spurs, you had Julian Champagne with 6 points, but he had a lot of contributions in other places. Victor Wembanyama with his 35, De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle, 17 points each. Devin Vassell, he had 15 points each. Bench production, they really didn't need bench production because they had the lead. They had the lead for the majority of the game, and they didn't relinquish it. Now, here's the statistics for the Spurs. Basically, for the Spurs, in the three-point department, they made 5 more threes than the Trailblazers. And also, when it comes to offensive rebounds, +3 for the Spurs. Defensive rebounds, +4 for the Spurs. Turnovers, the Spurs, they had 14 turnovers. They got to clean up the turnovers. And points in the paint, +6 for the Spurs. And the largest lead of this game was 21 points. And largest lead for the Trailblazers was 3 points. So, what can the Trailblazers do for game two? Game two is tomorrow night. Let's see what the Trailblazers can do, because I see this as a foregone conclusion, as a sweep already, because the one series that I see that is going to be close is Orlando and Detroit. I believe every game for the rest of that series is going to come down to possibly the last 2 or 3 minutes in the fourth quarter. The Spurs, after they go on a 10 or 12-point run, the game is pretty much theirs, because you have no scoring outside of Denny Avdija for the Trailblazers. Now, only thing I can say is valiant effort when it comes to the Portland Trailblazers last night. As you all can see, when it comes to The second quarter, they stayed with the Spurs for a while there, but as you all can see, when we get to third quarter highlights, the Spurs, they started to separate themselves. There's a three from Stefan Castle, and then there is a three from Julian Champagne. And then see, as you all can see, the lead has ballooned to 11 late in the third quarter. But as far as the fourth quarter, the Spurs started to assert their dominance. As you can see, 17-point lead. Even though the Portland Trailblazers tried to make a game of it and get it back down to under single digits, it didn't happen. And Portland Trailblazers are another play-in team that got into the playoffs over the weekend. Well, excuse me, not over the weekend, but Thursday night and into Friday morning. Now, can the Spurs pretty much win game 2? Yes, they can. And that was the only problem that Victor Wembanyama had last night. And I mean, he was trying to really throw it down with some authority. And I was like, oh man, he could have had 37 points right there. That could have been his 37th point right there. But he came down a little bit too much on it. But hey, look, at the end of the day, the Spurs won the game. They are up 1-0. And Mitch Johnson, we don't give him enough credit for what he has done with the Spurs. The Spurs are only a third-year team with this group. With Victor Wembanyama at the helm, this is only his third year, and they are way ahead of schedule. Could the Spurs get to the NBA Finals and win the NBA Finals? It all remains to be seen. And with that, those are my reactions to all of the game ones over the weekend. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to Keytime Sports right here on YouTube, Key City Sports on Instagram, and the KeyOnMillions.co. Here is my profile. Here is my merchandise. We are always rolling out new merchandise. We will have new shirts and new colors in our shirts. And we also have a brand new logo, part of our rebrand. And when it comes to my media feed, you can catch my media feed on millions.co with all of my sound bites, clips, and previous segments when it comes to the play-in tournament. And the playoffs are here, America, in the NBA. A lot of people and a lot of players' legacies can be cemented if they win the championship. And the first reaction video of Game 1s is complete. So everybody, remember one last thing: the key is always on time.